Hi, everybody. Welcome to ZTV, the new YouTube channel for Chicago Family Acupuncture, where we're discussing all things health and wellness. So today we're going to be interviewing a friend of mine, Caitlin, who's an herbalist. And I first wanted to do a little bit of an intro to explain that Chinese medicine is actually a huge umbrella of different modalities. And so acupuncture is the most famous one, but Chinese herbs is a huge part of Chinese medicine as well. And most people study both. They'll study Chinese herbs and acupuncture, even though they'll kind of consider themselves like, oh, I'm more of an herbalist or I'm more of an acupuncturist. But in the US, most people are both. I happen to just be an acupuncturist. I'm not an herbalist. The study of herbs is so intense and so complex and takes many years. And when I was in school for acupuncture, which is already 4 years in of itself, I was having kids and I just needed to catch a break. I just couldn't be the mom or the wife I wanted to be and study herbs as well as acupuncture. So in my heart, I'm like, you know what, acupuncture is my goal. That's my dream. And so I put herbs aside and I didn't study it. But most of my colleagues do study herbs and prescribe herbs as a part of their practice. So I didn't want to ever have a channel about acupuncture and not address herbs. Herbs are amazing. And I've used them many, many times and have helped with many, many things. So today we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of what herbs are and why you need to be taking herbs. So I'm really excited to introduce Caitlin. Caitlin and I went to school together for acupuncture. That's how we know each other. We actually were both transfers into the Chicago campus of our schooling. So we kind of met as new students, joining a cohort that was already established and existed. And we hit it off right away. We did a lot of clinic rotations together, and we spent a lot of time together. And she just founded her own acupuncture and herb practice called Willow and Elm Wellness. And I'm really excited for you all to meet her. She does telehealth visits, so if you are interested in getting herbs, I highly recommend her. So here's the interview. Joining us, I'm so excited that you're here.
I'm equally excited.
So, okay, why don't you start by just kind of telling us about yourself? And the main question that we always get is, how did you become an acupuncturist or an herbalist? So let's hear a little bit about your background.
So I'm a doctor of acupuncture and a certified herbalist. I was drawn to this particular field of medicine because my own health journey led me to seek out those services at a young age. In high school, I started having migraines and digestive issues on top of a lot of pain and fatigue. So I ended up missing about 64 days of my sophomore year of high school and ended up kind of working from home to graduate.
Wow.
In that time, I saw every doctor and specialist that I could get an appointment with, from Northwestern to Rush to Mayo Clinic, all the way in Minnesota. But no one could really give me a lot of answers or relief. So it was a lot of guessing and trying different medications. So finally, after about 2 years of surgeries and a lot of different long stays within different clinics, I was told to try acupuncture by an aunt. So I went, and within about 8 treatments, my pain was significantly lessened. I was eating again. I was back in the pool swimming. Before I got sick, I was a distance swimmer. So that was night and day change for me. I became so enamored with acupuncture and Chinese herbal medicine that I finished college in 2 years at Loyola and did pre-med to have that biomedical background, and then rushed to start acupuncture school. And I was really lucky and privileged to kind of know exactly what I wanted to do post-grad, so that I could execute that plan effectively and just kind of start my healing life.
Oh my gosh, very cool. I feel like that's a very common, in our school, it was like most people have had some sort of health crisis or trauma, and then we're healed by the power of, Chinese medicine or just alternative medicine, and then we're inspired to go into that. So very, very cool. And so can you introduce us to herbs? Because I gave a little intro before saying that, Chinese medicine's a huge thing, right? And herbs is a really big part of it. So can you just tell us a little bit about Chinese herbs, what Chinese herbs are?
Yeah, so I think of Chinese herbs in many ways. So they can be taken in the form of tinctures, which is an alcohol-based decoction, pills, powders, teas. They're often foods that you wouldn't even think would be classified as like a medicinal herb. So for example, mint, cinnamon, and ginger are all herbal medicine as well as they are food products. So they're just kind of organic materials that help the body to heal and utilize its own natural resources more effectively. And they kind of supplement gently what needs supplementing in the body. I think people have this view of herbal medicine as very esoteric and witchy, but if you think about it, many Western herbs are actually based, or Western drugs are actually based off of herbal medicine. Like a good example is aspirin. So aspirin has a component called salicin that comes from the willow tree, which is an herb. So they actually came up with the idea to kind of use aspirin with its pain reducing and anti-inflammatory effects from an herbal medicine background. So their herbs are just kind of a spin-off of medication, and medication is a spin-off of herbs.
Right. I don't think most people really realize that most drugs are they create drugs by studying herbs. So they'll study
Exactly.
natural herbs and then they'll create synthetic versions of herbs to have an effect in the body. So
Absolutely.
I think that's really cool. And also, just for people, when you see Chinese herbs in their raw form, it looks like a pile of twigs, leaves, sticks. Like it looks really like you went to the woods and you kind of just like picked things up. And also, some of our Chinese herbs are also like animal products too,
Mm-hmm.
which most people don't realize. So it's not your typical looking. Like herbs that you're cooking with, which we do have that too, but they look kind of different than
They do.
other. Yeah. So people would be shocked to know what it takes to become a Chinese herbalist. Can you tell us a little bit about the training and education that goes into herbs?
Yeah, so I have a diplomat I'm a diplomat of Oriental medicine. So what that looks like is after your name, it would be DIPL period OM. So that just means that someone's a certified herbalist. It takes about a year and a half on top of your original 4 years spent getting both a master's and a doctorate in acupuncture and East Asian medicine. So all in all, it takes more than medical school to be an acupuncturist and herbalist as far as time in school itself. So people are really surprised often. They think that you might just be willy-nilly prescribing herbs, but it takes a lot of background. We take pharmacology classes so that we can understand Western medicine as well as Eastern medicine. So it's a lot of work spent to make sure that you're safely and effectively prescribing herbs.
Yeah, it's a really serious thing. Like you guys are studying like the herb drug interaction. So you have to understand like what Western drugs are doing and how they interact with the herbs. And most doctors don't know about herbs, of course. Why would they? And so it's the herbalist's job to really like educate their patients on like, what medications are you taking? Like you can't take your herbs with these meds. And so it's really complex. It's not just like, oh, here, take some turmeric. It's really, really like an intense study. Okay, so how do Western herbs and Chinese herbs, how do they differ from each other? Because a lot of people here are very into like Western herbs, things like, I don't even know a good example, or even like Ayurvedic herbs like ashwagandha. And
Yeah.
so there's just so much out there. So what would you say are like the main differences between a Western herb and a Chinese herb? And like, can you give us some examples of that?
Yeah, so Western herbs are usually just herbs found in the West versus those indigenous to the East. Places like China and Japan would be classified as Eastern herbs. They have similar uses, and sometimes the two pharmacopoeias can be combined and work together synergistically quite well. You have to have the literacy to use both, which is over 365 herbs in each pharmacopoeia. So it would be a lot of work to kind of have a literacy in both. Many people do, but it's a lot of work. But so for example, cat's claw is a Western herb for pain, and mo yao is a Chinese herb for pain. They're the same use, very different herbs, but they're indigenous to different places. So you wouldn't be able to grow cat's claw as effectively in Japan, perhaps, and you wouldn't be able to grow mo yao or have myrrh in the West as easily as it would be found in the East.
So the way that herbs are grown, does that make a difference into like how effective they are?
Yeah, I think back to almost like the plants that we're putting into our bodies, right? A lot of us have this idea that GMOs are not very healthy, things like this. It's the same thing with herbs. So, how often we're tilling the soil, how quickly our growth periods are, if we're genetically modifying these herbs, it has a huge effect on whether the body can absorb those herbs. If you mess with the genetic makeup of an herb that we've been ingesting for 2,000 years, the body doesn't necessarily it's not open to receiving it in the same way that it would if it was, grown in the correct way or in the
Right.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, the right environment.
Um, a lot of people don't realize there have been a lot of studies on when you just go out and you buy like your herbs and supplements and vitamins. So these are not things that are FDA regulated. So an average consumer doesn't necessarily know that their vitamins may just be nothing. There might be nothing inside. Or if you're ordering, like if you go to Walgreens, right, and you get like a vitamin D and it's this many IU, it could really be, you know, a totally different number for what's inside of it. So they've done studies where they've gone to like Walgreens, Walmart, and have CVS. They've taken like all the vitamins and supplements, tested them like in a third party lab, and then it was like mostly rice powder or wasn't the same amount of milligrams it said on the packaging. So this could be like a serious thing. So just for everyone, like, are herbs safe to take? And how do you know that you're like getting what the bottle says? Again, because sometimes it's foreign, like, an average person like gets that bottle of herbs. They have no idea, what these ingredients are, what's inside. So can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, so I think I get that question a lot, especially just because I do treat women's health and fertility frequently. Are herbs
Right.
safe? So, when prescribed by a certified herbalist, herbs are safe. And that's why we have so much training, because it is difficult. You have to know Western biomedicine as well as sort of Eastern interactions with herbs and meds. So, we'll definitely ask about pharmaceuticals that you're on to make sure that there's no unsafe interactions. We'll explain dosing carefully. And when herbs are given by that sort of knowledgeable practitioner, they're safe and incredibly efficacious. When they're not, and when you're kind of looking at a CVS, like you said, a lot of those things are not FDA approved. So I believe that herbs and supplements should mostly be prescribed rather than found by patients. I just find that I get this a lot, where patients will read an article and how XYZ vitamin helps depression, but they don't necessarily have the biomedical background, and that's fine, to know how to take it or what brand to get or even why it would help them particularly and specifically. So humans are so unique, and that's a great thing about Chinese medicine, is that we treat humans as such. So you might need something very different than your best friend, your husband. Just because a fish oil worked for him doesn't mean it's going to work for her, that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
it's really good to have someone well versed in supplementation and herbal medicine to kind of guide those decisions. Like you said, a Costco brand might look like the same thing as a medical grade supplement, but depending on if the FDA has approved it or what governing body oversaw its production, it may not be effective, it might not be absorbable, it might not even have what it says it has in it.
Right.
So an herbalist or someone versed in functional medicine can be really helpful in this way. We wouldn't experiment on our car if we were having issues. We would find a mechanic. Unless you are a mechanic, then go for it. But that could be dangerous. It's the same thing with your body. This is your vehicle to move throughout your life. I don't think we should be experimenting with it. We should really have someone who's well versed in how to treat it.
Yeah, that's what I really wanted to drive home is, if you are taking herbs, supplements, like, make sure you're going to somebody who's licensed, who has experience in this. Again, like, not just like, oh, I read about it. Like, I have patients who they have like some sort of like herb book at home, and they're like, like, I'm feeling anxious. And then they like look up anxiety, see what herb it says, and then like buy that. I'm like, that's so not how it works. Like, in terms of public health in general, I feel like with alternative medicine, it is not one size fits all. We're treating the individual, we're treating the patient, we're not treating the disease. And so if we have, 10 patients walk into our clinics who have migraines, they're all getting different treatments. They're all getting different acupuncture points. They're all getting different herbs depending on who they are, what their constitution is, what other symptoms they have. So this is a very individualized medicine.
Mhm.
And so I always get annoyed when I read in like health magazines, like, everyone should be taking, turmeric, or everyone should be taking, this vitamin or this fish oil or this supplement. It's like, it becomes a trend. And I
Mhm.
feel like, no, like not everyone should be taking that, so it is important if people do want to be taking things, which is great. I feel like you need to find somebody who is licensed, somebody who is very well trained in this and knows all the ins and outs. And it's giving you also just the highest quality
Mhm.
of these, supplements, because there's just so much junk out there. So I feel like that's just a really important thing for people to know. And so what are some things, or is there anything you can tell us that people should be looking for if they are going out and buying any herbs or supplements, like anything on the label they should know about, or, um,
Yeah, I think calling companies sometimes and asking if products are double or triple batch tested is a good thing to ask, to
mhm,
see if the laboratory outside of that company has come in and tested what's in the products. I find that with professional brands like orthomolecular products and those sorts of things, they're very transparent about their manufacturing processes. And I find that if you can get a hold of that information, it's 10 times more likely to be effective for you. If they're kind of dodging your question, or you can't get a hold of a customer service representative that knows any of these things, then
mhm.
it's likely not that they don't know the information, might also be the case, but it might be that the information that they have won't make you a happy consumer.
And also, people don't realize in a lot of these products, there's, wheat, gluten, soy, dairy. And so if you have like some sensitivities or allergies, that could be a big problem. And the companies aren't always so forthcoming. So, yeah, there are some really good brands. And usually I feel like the better brands, though, need to be prescribed, right, from somebody who is, a professional. But so it's really worth knowing. I think that's what I want to tell people. It's worth knowing an herbalist. It's worth knowing somebody who knows even just vitamins. Even if you just want to take a multivitamin, like what company should you be using and could they order it for you? Just because it's medical grade, and you do want these things to be third party tested, where an outside lab is coming in and making sure like what's in the bottle is actually what's in the bottle.
Hmm. Well, and I think the professional brands are often higher quantities also, which is what you'd be needing. If you have a vitamin D deficiency, for example, you live in Chicago, you're quarantined, you might have a vitamin D deficiency. Most people do. It's pretty cloudy in this city. You're not going to be taking 1,000 IU a day. You're going to be taking 5, 10, and that can actually be, if you don't know how to take it, it can be dangerous. You don't want to be taking 50,000 if that's not what you need specifically. So I think that's why professional brands, first of all, they're more effective because they're not just a drop in the bucket. If you have a problem, you kind of need the big guns sometimes, but then they're a little bit less safe for just a random person to pick up off the shelf and take in a safe way.
Yeah. And actually, you were just helping me with a friend prescribe some vitamins, and you were giving them vitamin D, and you said, oh, they should really take it with vitamin K, and like,
Hmm.
these things, like, what things work synergistically, what's going to help absorb what, or what's not going to help it absorb, right? Like what you should be eating or drinking with or without these supplements. So that's like another point to just like drive home, is like it's not just about like, oh, I should take vitamin D, because yes, we should all be taking vitamin D, but again, like every individual is going to need a different combo of vitamin D, right, or a different dosage. So
Yeah, absolutely.
things we don't want to play with. um,
No.
I have a really funny memory. My mom's gonna kill me, but we had this health food store growing up, and she would take me there, and we would just tell like whoever worked there like our problems, and they would just like give us random like herbs and stuff. And I remember one time my mom got me like something for SAD, like seasonal affective disorder. Because we're like, oh, it's so sad that it's like the winter now. So they're like at the health food store, they're like, oh, here, take this. And now knowing everything I know about health, I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's not how it works. Like you don't just like say like I'm sad because it's the winter, because everyone's sad in the winter anyway. It's like so not appropriate. But we used
Yeah,
to
it
do
makes
that,
you
and I
kind of
think
think
most
about.
people do that too. Anyway, most people do
Oh
that.
yeah.
And that's why I really wanted to do like a YouTube channel where we can just talk about these things, because what we take for granted, like we forget that we used to not know about vitamins, about supplements, and most people don't. So it's
Well, and
important
I find
info. It's
it's
important.
really common. Like when I see people in practice, sometimes they'll say, "Oh, I started taking." Oh, there's a lot of different herbs to take, but St. John's wort is one of
Mhm.
the big ones for Western med for depression.
Oh yeah.
It's actually pretty problematic. Here's why. So you can take that for depression, but you should not be taking like an SSRI or an antidepressant of a specific class because it can cause a serotonin storm, which is very unsafe. So I've had patients come in and say, oh, I'm taking, Prozac and St. John's wort and I feel terrible. And in my mind, I'm like, stop immediately, stop everything that you're doing because you were a consumer trying to find information, and good for you. Like you should be an advocate for your own health, but to a certain extent, you need to kind of talk about, what your knowledge base is. I wouldn't expect to know, every surgical procedure that I was going in for. I'm not a surgeon. So it's the same thing. You kind of have to tap in other experts and say, this is what I'm thinking about. Yeah. What should I do? Yeah.
And it also works the other way too, where you can look at a patient, you can see a list of medication and then say, oh, you need to be taking this supplement. Like, right? Like you need to be taking CoQ10, right? Because that's what's going to help.
Absolutely. That's the biggest one.
Right. The CoQ10.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so you can find the things that people are taking and be like, wow, you're on the wrong path. Or you can look at what they're taking and say, wow, if you really want optimal absorption and your body to really use this, like you also need to take this, And so now that we're in this crazy time with, coronavirus, I'm like sick of hearing it, but what are some things we can be doing to build our immunity at home? Like any herbs or suggestions you have for us to help build immunity? Because, my biggest passion is acupuncture, and acupuncture helps build immunity. And that's like a proven, through many studies, shows how it affects the immune system. And so for me, it is killer that I know this is what people need now, and I can't be doing it, of course, but I wish I could. And the beauty of being an herbalist like you is that you can do these telehealth visits where you can talk to people online and give them, hear their health history and then tell them what they could be taking at home. So any ideas for us on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think of it as kind of a two-tiered approach. Just like you were saying, there's a lot of things that you can do for immunity, acupuncture being one of them. So I do sometimes do acupressure sessions. So like I'll call a patient and I know their background and we can kind of talk about how to locate some points and do acupressure. Additionally, I think we should also take note of the fact that stress is a really huge hindrance to your immune system. Yeah. So think of it sort of like this, and I know you know this, but for those that don't, think of it like this, evolutionarily speaking, if you were running away from a large predator, your body is not worried about if you're going to get the flu. Right. It's worried about getting you, up and out of that situation. So it really does not activate the immune system or activate protective measures in that way at all. So if you're chronically stressed, your body's going to think you're in a crisis. It will not activate that immune response at all. So you will get sick more frequently. I think we've all been there where we've been stressed and we keep getting colds and keep getting colds. That's what happens. So just managing stress well by, yoga, meditation, breath work, I think that would be really helpful at home too. Mm-hmm. But then on top of that, I think for most of my patients, I've been telling them to take zinc. Which is great. Yeah. So zinc, it's a great for wound healing and just speeding up healing from everything. So from colds, flus, as well as preventing them. Mm-hmm. Additionally, we've talked about vitamin D. So vitamin D can help immunity and mood. And we just spoke about how, mood and immunity do go together. So if you can kind of regulate the mood, the immunity will follow. And in Chicago, almost all of us are vitamin D deficient to some extent, and we're staying inside. So even more so now than before. Yeah. Additionally, vitamin C. So that's pretty well known, take your vitamin C, take your emergency, all of that to boost immunity. And then I think something that most people don't think about, at least for immunity, is that a probiotic can be really helpful. Mm-hmm. So probiotic to support the gut. So about 70% of our neurochemicals are made in the gut. So to stay happy, stay low stress, which supports the immune system, we need those beneficial bacteria to be flourishing. And then finally, I always suggest, well, not always, but most of the time suggest like a fish oil, a good healthy fish oil with omega-3s for anti-inflammatory. If our body is in a chronic state of inflammation, again, it's not going to go after these flus and viruses. It's going to start to unpack the inflammation that we carry every day. So we really want to kind of put out the fires in our body so that it's ready to fight something new.
Right. So just getting your body in like prime optimal shape is going to help you, because God forbid, if something does happen, you'll be more, able to fight it, and it also just helps prevent it from coming on. So also so much of our medicine is prevention. So doing all these things that we can be doing at home, it's so easy to just swallow a little pill, take that fish
Mm-hmm.
oil, or I know you actually do liquid drops mostly.
I
Right?
do. I do a lot. Yeah.
You do a lot
I'm
of
not
liquid, which I
hardcore
think
with the
people
fish oil.
love. Yeah.
I wouldn't do liquid with fish oil because
Yeah.
that is hardcore. I mean, more power to you, but I take
Yeah,
mine lemon scented.
the fish oil is really hard. Our fish oil here, I think, is maybe Nordic Naturals that we're using. The
I
brand.
use Nordic Naturals as
Yeah,
well.
you want to use a really good brand of fish oil that has to be like it has to be like Arctic, right, or like from Alaska. It has to be like a certain type of fish. It's like a serious thing. So our pills are literally like they're massive, but they're pretty easy to get down. I think they made it like lemon, whatever.
That's
Um,
what I have too. I have the lemon flavor.
yeah, that's really funny. So, yeah, the fish oil is good, and like so going into that a little bit more, we always say like people always say food is like medicine, but we say no, food is medicine. The food
Mm-hmm.
you're eating is your medicine. That's also what's preventing you from getting sick or curing you when you are sick, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why like right, we always say like chicken soup's the best medicine. It really is. It's healing. The bone broth
Yeah.
is healing. So. For fish oil, for people who don't have good fish oil at home, you can be eating more salmon, more flax. There are nuts. There are a lot of like natural sources of fish oil. And then, how do you incorporate in Chinese herbs or like what you do into your cooking? Do you have recipes you always make, and that's kind of like your herbal soup or recipe? What do you think about that?
I do a lot of bone broths, which I know a lot of people in our profession definitely do. It can be a little tricky with like vegan folks for sure.
Yeah.
You can make good veggie stock. I always say to keep all your vegetable cut, like you clip off the top of a carrot, put it in a bag, put it in your freezer. You can make homemade vegetable stock with it. So
Mm-hmm.
that can be really helpful too, just because those do have really good nutrients in them. But for me, I
Yes.
do a lot of bone broths, and I incorporate Chinese herbs into my cooking pretty frequently. I actually sell bone broth kits and medicinal wine kits on my website, and I really do. Yeah, I
Did you
use
say
the book.
wine?
Sorry.
Did you say wine?
I do. So I don't sell the wine itself, but I sell the raw herbs, and it makes 3 bottles of wine, and it's really
Whoa.
great for pain, for stress, and for sleep. So there's a lot of herbs that are blood building in our medicine. So that would be great for energy, for immunity, and again for like sleep and stress. So I find that those are really effective. I started making those just because my patients were always asking for my wine recipes because I like to make medicinal wine and share it with people. It's a fun way to drink wine, and it just tastes like mulled wine. It's delicious.
That's
Um, but it
cool.
can be really medicinal, which is great. So I do a lot of bone broths, and I do a lot of wine as well. And I do utilize the book Ancient Wisdom, Modern Kitchen in my home a lot as a dietary guide. And I do that for patients as well. So if I know their pattern or what they're going through in their body, I'll often pick out recipes that would be effective for them using herbs and food interchangeably in those recipes, so that they don't have to be taking tinctures or pills. Because if you tweak your diet effectively, you shouldn't have to take that much. I think in the US, we don't eat super well, and that's why we need to supplement more. But if you do change your diet, you can really keep those supplements in a manageable place where you're not taking 3 handfuls of pills a day.
I have to tell you, like with my patients, I'm pretty much telling them to drink water and eat their fruits and vegetables, Like it really
Right.
is that simple and not that complicated. Really just like stock up on your fruits and vegetables, eat the rainbow, and you'll be good. But I always, whenever I'm in our fruit and vegetable market, I grab a knob of ginger always. Ginger
Mm-hmm.
is huge in Chinese medicine, right? With treating the common cold, you know more about that. But anytime I make like chicken soup or anything like that, stew, soup, I just take a huge knob of ginger and throw it in.
Oh
Why not?
yeah.
And it's tasty. Well, some people really don't like it, but
I'm one of them, but I do take it as a medicine. I do not like ginger or the taste, but
oh really?
but for my like at-home remedies, and we learn this in school, I do fresh ginger and scallions, and I just fold it up into like a little freezer pack and put it in the freezer for flu season, and then you can decoct that and kind of boil it into water and make a tea, and it's really effective for those like colds and flus that come and go. I also keep herbs on hand. So I use something called jade windscreen. In English, it's Yuping Feng Sun, which most people know, even if they're not herbalists. And then I also have a tincture, Shao Chai Hu Tong, that I keep in my purse during flu season, and I'm constantly, giving it away to patients and having to order a new one. And
Yeah.
those sorts of things, if you work in an office, if you live downtown, you're going to be touching things that other people have touched. And if you have kids going to daycare, you will get sick. So it's nice to have those little remedies that you know how to use at home.
Just different times that I've taken herbs, I just want to share for people so they know that you can take herbs for so many different things. Number one is I get migraines, right? So I've taken herbs plenty of times to help with that. And then also when I'm postpartum with both my kids, I took herbs, and it was very simple, and I don't remember what it was called, but it was just a few raw ingredients, and I would make it into a tea and drink it. It really helped give me like energy, and just like helped with like the hormonal fluxes. And just really, I think really like helped me recover from that. So that's a really good time when you're vulnerable as a woman, to be taking herbs. So again, like when you need extra support, like you should really think about herbs. And it's so funny we're talking about this because I was just in a WhatsApp group with a bunch of girlfriends, and I was kind of sharing like my anxieties about coronavirus, and schools were canceled, and what am I going to do? And like, I finally moved into my new office space, and, just because it is, even though, nobody's perfect, like we're all still, having our struggles and our worries, like, of course, if you're not, that's not normal, I would say. But so one of my friends said, oh, what do you think about like taking anything, like call your doctor and just tell them, you just tell your doctor you're a little anxious. They'll give you like Xanax or Lexapro or something. And I was just like, wow, that's so interesting, because I guess being in the profession that we're in and with all of our training, I would have like never thought of that. I would never have thought to do that. To me, I was like, I've been thinking, oh wow, I really need to talk to an herbalist, That's why I named this little session of ours, You Need Herbs, because there's so many times in life where you've heard that, right? Like when in our schooling, it's like, oh, I'm so stressed about this test. You need herbs. Everything was you need herbs, you need herbs, you need herbs. But I would have never really thought, not judging anybody who is taking Xanax or anything. There's absolutely no judgment there. But it's so funny. I was just thinking, oh, I really need some herbs. I need that extra support because typically, I'm not that anxious. I'm able to manage it really well with like my lifestyle choices. But in this time, it's like, I think we all need a little bit of extra support. And I think it also has to do with like, not being as social, not going outside as much, the things that, I'm an extrovert, like that's going to affect me, So,
Absolutely.
I just want to say like how, yeah, the herbs are an amazing, amazing healing power. And especially, I've heard people complain, oh, I've tried herbs, they were hard to get down. There's a lot of different forms, like Caitlin mentioned, of herbs. It's not all just like disgusting teas, or there's a lot of ways, and there's pill form. There's so many different ways you can take it. I also give my kids herbs. When you have a child that has a horrible cough and cold that won't go away, there is nothing to do in Western medicine for that. It's viral, and they'll tell you like, there's nothing to do. Like you'll just have to wait it out. And your kid's coughing and they can't sleep at night. I have herbs for that work beautifully. And it's just like a little syrup. My kids take it. They like it. And then I also have Tender Teeth by Blue Poppy, maybe.
Blue Poppy. Mm-hmm.
And so again, with the teething, I also give them herbs, and they're completely, completely, completely safe. There's like nothing to worry about in terms of that. But again, like in Western medicine, they don't have solutions for that for children. So I also want people to know like pediatric herbs is a thing. And not only that, there are acupuncturists out there that specialize in pediatrics too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I take a course in like pediatric Tuina, which is like pediatric massage. So there's things to do for your kids too. So that's important for people to know, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have stepkids and they only take herbs. I mean, obviously, they're not obviously, but they're vaccinated and they take meds when they need. I think, West and East have a really great way of working together sometimes. But like you said, I have a bonus kiddo with eczema and allergies. There's not much that Western med can do for that. So I have some really great herbal infused salves for his eczema, and it works beautifully. It's night and day. Changing diet really helps. All of these things, and like Blue Poppy has a pediatric formula that's actually suspended in glycerin, so it tastes sweet for kids. Yeah. So you don't have to taste bad. Even adults can take blue poppy if they're really averse to, the taste.
Yeah.
You have to take a lot.
Right, that's a lot. It's a big
Yeah, I mean,
no, yeah, I love that you mentioned the eczema, allergies, asthma, trifecta. In children, even if they are on their Western meds, they're usually still experiencing those symptoms. So even if they're taking on the steroid creams and the inhalers, and of course, like all doing all the right things that they should be doing, their kids are still suffering, right? So it's nice to have like really good. Yeah, they take like salves. They make like
Emily's has dongui in it, which is a Chinese herb, and it has mint. So it's really great. I mean, herbs are really infused in a lot of products that we use already, and we just might not know that they're there.
Right.
But like you said, I mean, herbs, just like you wouldn't think to use a Xanax, I think since we're schooled in a different way, we would always think to use herbs, but I think consumers have the opposite, where they're like, oh, I can use herbs for that. So, I mean, you can use herbs for what we said, asthma, allergies, all of this, headaches, migraines for you, colds, flus, mood disorders, stress, anxiety, insomnia, chronic pain, women's health, fertility, a lot of different things, digestive issues. So you can really use it for anything that you would use a Western med for, and it has to be just tailored to you. Right. So whereas you might take a Xanax, in Western medicine, you might take a Xiaoyaosan formula for Chinese medicine, and it's still, really particular to your pattern. Not every herb is the same for every person, that sort of thing, but it's the same thing. You take it when you need it, or you take it, postpartum for you. It's the same usage as Western medicine. It's just perhaps a little bit more gentle and outside of some people's comfort zone. But that's why we're making this video, to kind of expand knowledge on that, so more people become more comfortable.
Yes. How can people find you? How can people have a visit with you or do a telehealth call? Where do we follow you on social media? And of course, I'll link this all. But
yeah, thanks. So again, my name is Dr. Caitlin Courtney. You can find me on Facebook. So you'll look up Willow, the +, Elm Wellness, and my Instagram is at Willow and Elm Wellness, and my website is the same, willowandelmwellness.com. So I'm taking patients when it's safe, but for telehealth, I'm open and ready to help with herbs and supplements.
Great. Well, thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
This is such a fun. It's fun because it's like we're friends and we get to talk Chinese medicine. So it's like the best of both worlds.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking the time to call.
Of course. All right. We'll see you soon.
Yeah.